Good morning.
Hello.
Hey, Miss Mary.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm having every computer problem I could have. I have my computer and a laptop that's
Oh my
not
gosh.
cooperating with me today. So I have somebody running downstairs to grab another one.
No problem. We don't even have
We
a
have touring. Okay.
No, ma'am, we don't.
Okay. Well, just shout out when we do, and hopefully by then I'll have the computer working.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. This is Bambi. For the staff, I just got a text from Sue Killam. She is participating with for Phil today. Can she be let into the meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Panelists? Thanks.
Miss Mary?
Yes.
It's 9:12 and there are only 4 committee members present. Our quorum is 6. I
Okay.
can let you know if you wanted to wait a bit longer or not.
Let's wait till 9:15 just to be,
Okay. I have just received word that Nicole Banks will probably be absent. And from what Bambi just shared, it sounds like Dr. Phil Wilson will not be attending either.
okay.
So we can, that leaves 4 other members to possibly show up.
Okay. Let's give them just a couple more minutes. Let's wait till 9:15 and see what we look like.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Marilee, this is Bambi. Who are the other 4 members?
Carmen Setnar, Brenda Kosei, Mitch Iddens, and Tamisha Sonye.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, it's Mary. We still haven't got anybody else to help us with the quorum.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then I guess we'll have to reschedule. I hate to ask everybody to continue to wait, and these other 4 people, we'd have to like call them probably if they haven't gotten on by now. So we'll just have to work on rescheduling.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
This is Bambi. Is there any way that we can just discuss the items? I mean, it's really, I just
Oh,
want to
yeah.
is on the record because we don't have a quorum, but it's very disheartening that, this is, an honor to serve in this capacity for this council that means so much to our state. And I don't know where the breakdown is, but, it's not respectful to those of us who have scheduled our time to be here. And so I think we need to address that somehow to make sure that people, make sure that we have the meetings whenever, it's convenient for the majority of people and get a commitment that we have a quorum. I'm sorry, my phone's going off. I apologize. I put it on silent. But I don't know if maybe we can just have a discussion about some of the items. It might not be a formal recommendation, but people can go back and watch it. We can, and then we can't do anything as a committee unless the council approves it. So maybe if we have discussions and recommendations could be made from the floor. And I'm sorry, I didn't have my camera on. Wait, let me turn my camera on. I apologize. Yes, so we can maybe have discussions and then formal recommendations could be made from the floor. Just a suggestion. I don't know what everyone else wants to do.
That's fine with me. I don't, is, there's somebody on with the Louisiana Rehab Services and the Department of Education?
Hi, Mary. This is Melissa. I am here, and so is Angela Montgomery for LRO.
Okay.
And I'm here from LDOE, Sarah Fletcher.
Hey, Sarah, welcome to our first
Hi.
half meeting.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Miss Mary, if you would like, I can call roll just so we can have on the record who attended and who didn't.
Okay.
And then
Let's-
I'll just take note
Okay.
that it's not of an actual meeting and we're just discussing.
Okay.
Okay, Bambi Polizzola,
Here.
Melissa Baham,
Here.
Christopher Rodriguez,
Here.
Mary Tarver,
Here.
Carmen Setnar, Brenda Kose, Mitch Iddens, Tamisha Saunier, Nicole Banks, Dr. Phil Wilson.
This is Sue Killam. I'm sitting in for him today to just report back to him.
Okay, great. I have you down as sitting in for him, but unfortunately, you don't count towards the quorum.
I understand. I do count though.
You definitely count.
Definitely count.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Merrily, how can we just like go through, obviously the stuff that says vote, we won't discuss, but the, we can get update and then introduce Sarah and kind of, is that?
So as I understand it, you guys can always discuss. You just can't conduct any council business like voting or making a formal recommendation.
Okay, well, then let's do that.
Okay.
All right. Well, welcome to those who are here. We'll go through the agenda for the things that are, we'll skip over the summary, I guess, because it just needs a vote. And then we'll get an update and kind of play it by ear. We'll be informal for sure today. So for Louisiana Rehabilitation Services, Angela Montgomery.
Hey, Mary. It's Melissa. At the last minute, my meeting got canceled, so I'm here.
Oh, okay.
So I'll be making our update today, which I don't have a lot to update you on, but I'll take any questions that any of the members have. I was asked to give a COVID update. There are no major updates there other than we're continuing to see clients by appointment in our offices, and then also we're also seeing clients still and predominantly virtually through the Zoom platform. So we are definitely still seeing clients, and we welcome referrals. Our referrals are starting, luckily, they're starting to increase a little bit more, but our production is still down because, and for a good reason, a lot of individuals are still not wanting to engage. But we would like to get as many clients through our doors or virtually because we are here to serve them. As far as pre-employment transition services, we're still continuing to try to get more school districts on board. Obviously, this is a very difficult time for school districts, but we're not stopping. We're still trying to make sure that we engage students and especially all of our public schools and charter schools. So we are continuing our efforts there. I think the agenda also asks for a customized employment update. I don't think we have anything there. I know Sue's team at LSU HDC are continuing their work with the University of South Florida in their training. I don't know if she has anything to add. She would know better than me specifically what's been going on with the University of South Florida. But we are they're continuing their training and their certification so that they can start training and certifying our community rehab programs. Any questions or any thing that you want me to talk about specifically?
Yeah, I know that the Kelly Monroe had talked about at the last meeting about sending people to Mississippi for a different training than the one that was LSU. And so I didn't know if we finally reached like that is okay and we don't have to worry about that.
Right, that's Mark Golden Associates, and they provide a certification in customized employment. The only thing that I wanted to make them aware of is that there are two different things that they do at Mark Golden Associates, and one is more of like just a certificate of completion, and one's an actual certification, and they would have to actually be going through the certification process. The reason why we are engaging LSU with, and luckily we got some funding for that, for them to be trained so that they could provide training that is, and I don't know the numbers off of the top of my head, but their training is going to be a lot more cost efficient because the training in Mississippi is quite expensive. So that was one of the concerns early on, was that CRPs, this was just community rehab programs, it was just too expensive to go through the training through Mark Golden Associates. So this was our avenue to create a good training, but a more cost-effective training.
So I had one other question. I was just wondering about the COVID vaccine. Like, would people who are in employment situations, if they meet the criteria of, I guess maybe in this next phase when they open it up to essential workers and all that stuff, do you think that there's any opportunity for some of the clients to get the vaccine, or that they?
I honestly don't know the answer to that, so I don't even want to speculate.
Okay.
I would have to get some more information from the Department of Health.
Would they, I was wondering what would be the connection? And I guess I was just thinking about people who go to employment jobs, if they were able to get it. I work at the hospital, and so I know we're giving it now, but it's only to healthcare providers. So
yeah, that's definitely something I need to find out some more information on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Melissa or for Louisiana Rehabilitation Services?
I have a quick question. I know an incredible amount of work has been done to eliminate and combat 14C waivers in the state of Louisiana, sub-minimum wage. I was just curious, I don't think sub-minimum wage exists in Louisiana, is that right? Or are there still outstanding 14C waivers? The reason I ask this question is because I haven't read the language and I don't even know if the bill has been written up yet. But in a summary of Biden's next, I guess, not necessarily like a COVID bill, but it's like the Economic Reinvigoration Act or whatever it's called. It actually has tucked in there an elimination of 14C, getting rid of the Wagner-O'Day Act, 1930, whatever. So I was just curious the actual impact that might make on Louisiana to determine like our level of advocacy behind the federal bill.
Right. My understanding of the whole situation, and I have heard what you have heard, which is that in one of Biden's packages, he definitely is looking to eliminate sub-minimum wage. Obviously, in the vocational rehabilitation program, we do not support sub-minimum wage, but we do have responsibility to go to the community rehab programs to provide guidance and counseling to individuals who are under those certificates. I haven't looked at it recently, but we definitely do have community rehab programs that still have sub-minimum wage certificates. But I don't know if there's somebody here from OCDD because I don't know where they're at in their process. But I know from what I understand, the majority of individuals in sub-minimum wage are generally in those developmental disability facilities. And I know the Department of Health, the OCDD program, they had a plan in place to eliminate the use of sub-minimum wage as far as the waivers were concerned, which I think is where the majority of those individuals receive their funding. So that's my understanding of it, if that makes sense.
A little bit. So you're saying that basically, I guess there's like two entities that would be interested in having a 14C waiver, one of which is largely kind of phase itself out, which would be like a typical business, that might invest in a 14C waiver. And I think those are relatively rare. And where you really have 14C waivers are basically day have programs, or like otherwise
That's my
sheltered workshops. And we don't know how many of those shelter workshops have and are exercising 14C waivers, sub-minimum wage.
right. And we've looked at that in the past. Like I said, we just haven't done it recently because I know they were dropping off because they knew the new rules that were coming with the waivers. A lot of entities were getting rid of their 14C certificates, but I haven't taken a look recently to see where we were at with that. But I know they were definitely reducing the amount.
Got it. Thank you.
So Melissa, is that something that you could look at, or is it something we need to follow up with OCDD?
I'm pretty sure I can go. I think it's on the Department of Labor's website because this is done by the Department of Labor, these certificates. I think I can go to the Department of Labor website because we've researched this in the past. I just haven't done it recently. And you can get a list of any state's 14C certificate holders. So I will do that. But it might, to get better information, you get better information from OCDD as far as, because somebody might actually have that certificate, but they've told OCDD they're not using it anymore. So they'll be able to give you more accurate information, but I can look up the information for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Melissa, would it be possible? I've seen the website, but I don't know how to. I know it's like in the bowels of Wage and Hour DOL. Could you, if you find it, could you send it around to us just so we could do some research?
Absolutely. I know I can
Appreciate
copy this to take some digging.
I'm on the site now, and there's appears to be about 25 to 30. I didn't count each line, but there's a table. If you'd like, I'd put it in the comment section for everybody now. It's not maybe all the information that Melissa is able to get directly from them, but it is the table of 14C waiver holders in the state of Louisiana. And you can sort it by state, so you get them all together.
Yeah, and I seem to remember they actually tell like how many individuals are served under each waiver typically. I think from back, I did research years ago. So you can actually determine the number of individuals actually being compensated sub minimum wage, I think. Is that right?
I
This
definitely have
table-
seen that information before.
Yes, it has the number of workers paid sub minimum wage in the the last
quarter.
column. So I'll send
Okay.
you the link.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank y'all.
Miss Mary,
Yes.
Charlie Michelle has his hand raised.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi there. Good morning. I was just curious, Melissa, I know when I was in Lafourche Parish, we had a great partnership with LRS with our transition meetings and all for the older students in the schools. But I know a lot of the other special ed directors around the state, especially in the more rural areas, were having a little bit more difficulty because of manpower and distance and everything else. With the advent of all the virtual meetings that we have now, has the representation or the collaboration between LRS and the school systems in the more rural areas been able to happen so that more students can receive those services?
I know we definitely have improved because of virtual services and being able to attend IEPs virtually. We have been able to participate more. I'm not going to tell you 100% across the board, but I'll definitely get an update on that for you. Because I know
Thank you.
you're asking because it's been difficult in rural areas. So hopefully that has improved, but I will definitely look into that for you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
No, but there is a comment in the chat.
Can you, I can't, I'm on my phone so you can,
I can read it, Miss
I
Mary.
can video, but I can't.
It's from Miss Rhonda Corley. She says a lot of healthcare workers and DSWs are allowed to get the vaccine. However, you have to remember that a lot of people, especially people with disabilities, cannot get the vaccine, especially individuals with any type of allergies. Additionally, a lawsuit regarding the requirements for individuals to receive the vaccine in their employment has been filed here in Louisiana. The lawsuit is filed under the American Disabilities Act. And that's all we have in the comment.
All right, thank you. Okay, the Louisiana Department of Education, Sarah Fletcher, and you are new to our group, so if you will introduce yourself and then we'll let you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here today. Thanks for welcoming me and inviting me. Yeah, I'm Dr. Sarah Fletcher. I'm a school psychologist by training and a former teacher. So I'm really excited to be working at the department now. We've got a lot of new changes happening, but we've got a lot of good work to do. So I'm really excited. So we have a couple of updates for COVID-19, talking kind of along the same lines. We got about $8 million from the Louisiana legislature for distance learning devices. So we'll be using those funds to purchase Chromebooks. And then along the lines of the vaccination, Dr. Brumley, in a letter to the Louisiana Department of Health, Dr. Brumley asked that all the 166,000 early child care workers, pre-K-12 teachers, and other education staff get voluntary access to the vaccine and move up in priority level. And then we're still working on LEAP administration this year. So in light of the continued challenges, we're offering some flexibilities in how that's being administered, and the testing windows have been expanded for, and more virtual practice tests are being offered. And we also just announced an additional $1.2 million in compensatory services funding for school systems that they're able to apply for now to get money for the services that they've been providing so far this year to make up for any lost learning or services due to the pandemic last spring. I think that's all I have for COVID. We have released the developmental screening guidebook, which can be found on the Young Children with Disabilities landing page. So that's been a big update on our website. This is the webinar. There's a webinar and it gives an in-depth review of the guidebook. And then it's an updated resource guide on the early childhood transition process, which is for families to help navigate the system of special education. We have another exciting partnership is with the DM group. I think I saw David James in here. We have a partnership with the district management group to develop a comprehensive plan to guide the work of LDOE to better serve students with special needs. And so you may have been, they may have reached out to you already to do a focus group. And so we encourage you to give really candid feedback and provide a lot of input there so that we can kind of charter the new direction for this administration at LDOE. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Do you want to pause there and see if Mr. James is on the call, if he wants to give a little spiel about what he's working on?
Mary, actually, Mr. James is on the call. I can allow him to speak if you like.
Yes, please.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is David James. I'm a director at District Management Group. And as Ms. Fletcher mentioned, we're currently partnering with the LDOE and specifically the Office of Equity, Inclusion, and Opportunities to develop a plan to guide the work of the LDOE to better serve students with special needs. And so, again, as Ms. Fletcher mentioned, we're conducting a series of confidential conversations and focus groups. I know I've spoken with some folks on this call already, but with stakeholders across the state to provide folks a voice in that planning process. And so wanted to check with this group in terms of what would be the best way to collect the input and feedback from individuals and stakeholders on the Louisiana Development Disabilities Council. That I understand there's specific ways or methods that you all would like to offer up folks on the council to provide feedback. And so wanted to join the meeting today to see what would be the best way to collect feedback and input from this council.
I wonder if there's something that we can do with a like get a date and time that we could have a couple of opportunities and that for a focus group. Can you do it in a when you were saying it was confidential, but is it that you need individuals and you're doing one-on-one, or you want a group?
We've been doing a combination, but I think for a body like the council, it could be helpful to do it as a focus group to give multiple folks the opportunity to participate. And so we'll typically set the groups up to be anywhere between 4 and 6 individuals, and we'll run a meeting for that group for between 30 and 60 minutes to offer folks the chance to provide feedback. So typically for a group like this, we don't talk with everybody, but a representative sample of the council.
Right. Well, that sounds great. This opportunity for the DD Council is awesome. So we appreciate you including us, and we certainly want to help with the work that you are starting. So I would wonder if we could, if there would be an opportunity to do a couple of focus groups, to offer it at a couple of different times, and then the DD Council staff could send it out and we could get volunteers. I have a feeling we would have lots of people that would want to volunteer and be a part of a focus group. So would it be better for all of us to for you to give us some days and times, and then we could fill it in? I don't know how.
Yeah, we'd be happy to host, say 2 or 3 focus groups. Put put a date and time out there and allow folks to join at one of the times that's convenient to them. Is there somebody on the council that it would make sense to connect with offline just to coordinate dates and times that would work well for folks on your end?
Sure. Marilee, what staff would help us to get the,
I think that would be me.
okay,
Yes, so I will send you my email, Mr. James. And I'm not sure, Miss Mary, I don't know if we should maybe suggest this at the main council meeting.
yes. It'll have to be,
More informally that way,
employment committee for sure, but
since there's not a quorum is what I was thinking.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Well, would it make sense then, Ms. Andrews, should I connect with you offline and then we can coordinate from there pending the full council's approval?
Yes, I think that's great.
Okay, great.
I'll just send you my email in this
Perfect.
chat.
When's the council meeting? Is it next week?
The council meeting is this Thursday
This week. Okay,
at 8:30 a.m.
perfect. So, Mr. James, we will definitely look forward to working with you and getting a couple of groups together for feedback, and appreciate you being on the call, and appreciate Louisiana Department of Education working with y'all to start this new initiative in planning.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for your time.
Sure.
This is Bambi. Before Mr. James leaves, I saw Charlie Michelle made a recommendation that one of the focus groups be with our Families Helping Families directors or their designee. And I think that they're working in the field every day, that would be a great focus group. I'll make that recommendation.
That's good.
I'm not sure if I'm still on mute. Can folks hear me?
We can hear you.
You can? Okay, great. Yes, so just a quick reaction to that. So we have had a chance to talk with folks from Families Helping Families already. We did host a focus group with, it looks like 5 different individuals from that group. So that was an organization that the LDOE had recommended that we reach out to. So we did have a chance to connect with them.
Great, thank you. Okay, are there any other comments or chats in the chat?
Yes, Miss Mary, you have 6 comments and we have 2 hands raised.
Okay. Let's go with the
What would you
hand.
like to-
Yeah, let's go with hands raised.
Good morning, Madam Chair and the rest of the community and the rest of the committee. This is Ms. Corley. I am deeply troubled that we would say that we would like to recommend for them to actually speak with Families Helping Families first, instead of speaking directly with a focus group that consists of people that are directly in the education community, such as our parents. If we're going to create a focus group, yeah, they can be at the table, but definitely have parents that have children in the school systems at the table, because nobody's being impacted more heavily by COVID being in these school buildings than our parents who have children that enter those brick and mortar buildings every single day. And to silence them and to not want to have them heard and be part of a focus group is absurd. Secondly, why are we having an education committee meeting today when Bessie is currently meeting? Bessie have a meeting today. Bessie 2021 schedule has been posted on their website. We are not represented right now. Bessie meeting today in regards to charter schools, which I know we have multiple lawsuits against charter schools, specifically in New Orleans area, not servicing our children with disabilities. Who is our representative that's attending the Bessie board meetings today? I would definitely love to know that. In addition to that, the compensatory services money. Compensatory services legally are supposed to be addressed at the very beginning of the school year. What's the deadline on when this money have to be used? What is the deadline? The state is about to get the State Department of Education is about to get $1.2 billion. How is the developmental council gonna ensure that that 1.2 billion is utilized to service our children that are going into the brick and mortar buildings, as well as our children that are homebound? The vaccine, most of our people with disabilities cannot receive it. Cannot. Most of our direct support workers cannot receive it. They either have an underlying issue or because they have something like allergies. I need everybody on this education committee to actually think about what you're telling our people who go in these buildings. We have more than 200,000 children with developmental disabilities that are a part of this school system, Louisiana school system. And right now, their voices are not being heard. Their voices are not being heard. So if you're gonna create a focus group, bring parents to the table that actually send their children into this brick and mortar building. Bring parents that have children with low incidence. Bring parents to the table whose children are not being served right now in the midst of a pandemic.
Thank you. Well, we'll cover a couple of the questions. One on the focus group, that is what they're here today to do. This is an agreement and a process that Louisiana Department of Education has started. And so they are working through a management group that is having focus groups across the state. So what you're saying is what they're doing. The Families Helping Families is one piece. Parents are a piece. The DD Council is a piece. So they will get an opportunity, or people will have an opportunity to become part of focus groups throughout the state. And I applaud them for doing that. So there will be representatives from parents across the state, as well as other groups that will be doing that. As far as the Bessie board and their meetings, we will look at what our calendars are for the Bessie board and try to avoid scheduling our meetings at that time. But it was yesterday before, I think you made a comment about it, or this morning. And so our agenda and our meetings have also been posted. So we, unfortunately have the same date and time, and we'll try to do a better job of not doing that. But it would have helped had we realized that last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever we set our meeting. And then about the money that the Department of Education is getting and what they're going to be using it for, I'll ask Ms. Sarah Fletcher if she has any other information about that she can share with the group today.
Yeah, thanks. That's a good question. So you're exactly right, Ms. Corley. The schools were supposed to start delivering those compensatory services at the beginning of the school year. And really over the summer, they could have been looking at the data they had from any distance learning that they had done to determine whether or not compensatory services were needed. And then at the start of this school year, most school systems made an offer of compensatory services to the families and for each student that needed it. And then if they accepted that offer, then they planned for the services for this year. And so the students likely have been receiving these services for this year. The extra money is to go on top of the money they get from their IDEA budget to support these extra services that students need.
Thank you.
There's no deadline. It's just the school year, for these extra services.
In the school year.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mary,
Yes.
this is Bambi. I've been trying to raise my hand. I'm very concerned that our meeting is public, and there was a comment made about our Families Helping Family Centers, that people could perceive that our Families Helping Family Centers are not family members. That the Families Helping Family Centers are people with disabilities and family members. Now, of course, they're not the only ones, so everybody's voice should be at the table, but they do represent families, not only their own families, but they interact and support families in the community across our state. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. I wish I could have said it, interjected sooner, so that the public would not be confused about our Families Helping Family Centers.
Definitely. I appreciate you saying that, Bambi. Okay. Ebony, are there any other hands?
Yes, Miss Rosalind Highmore has her hand raised.
Okay. Rosalind?
Yes. I don't know if y'all could hear me or not.
We can hear you now.
All right. What I want, the thing is, I ran a little late. I'm sorry about that. But I know I missed a lot of it. But how can, for like children in the state of Louisiana, and I know it's a little hard with the COVID and that, how can they go to school, especially when they're wearing their mask and that, and they're trying to talk for, for the children who are in the centers, and they try to talk through the mask. And I know teachers, could they ever really understand them if they talking through the mask? So how does that work?
Well, I know from my own experience with Hayden, he has gotten so used to wearing a mask. The other day when we got out of the car and we were outside, he was like, mask? So the kids have definitely gotten used to wearing masks, and they compensate, I think, for, whenever they're talking in the classroom. But I don't know. I don't know if they've, continued to have issues. And I think in each school, they kind of just work through whatever issues that they have. I know there's also some masks that have the clear face, where where you can see people's lips. And one of our clinics actually has a pediatric therapy, and that's what they've been using with the children. So sometimes they're making accommodations for that.
Yeah, so, yeah, like you say with the clear ones, I wish they would have made more clear masks in that to be easier, mainly to sit in the centers or classrooms, no matter what school, in every parish that they have, instead of, the plastic, instead of the cloth or whatever mask that they're really using.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh Lord, how can I mute myself again?
All right, are there any other hands raised?
No, Mary, but you have several comments in the chat.
Okay.
So the first question I think is for Dr. Fletcher. It's, can you explain what the compensatory services will look like for students with disabilities? That's from Ms. Liz Gary.
Yeah, that's going to be different for each child depending on their situation and their disability and kind of what learning or what services they lost during the school facility closure this past spring. And so the schools and the IEP teams should really be looking at that to answer that question about what additional services would the child need above and beyond what they would currently be receiving to make up that lost ground. And so that's what we would be calling compensatory services for this school year. So it could be anything. It could be extra instructional time. It could be extra, time with the service provider. It could be anything. It just depends on the IEP team decision.
The second question is from Mr. Harlan Kauser. He's asking, why are the school systems so devoted to the Chromebook when they have many accessibility issues for people with disabilities?
That's a good question too. I think we are, with Chromebooks, it's something that I know internet accessibility has, this pandemic has brought that issue to light for sure around the state. And so Chromebooks are pretty cheap and easy ways to get kids on the internet. And then when it comes to the more specific and like special assistive technology that students need, we definitely acknowledge that that's a need too. And so that is something that could be paid for through compensatory services on an individual basis if that's what's necessary.
And the rest of the comments are comments, they're not questions. Charlie Michelle says, please know that many of the executive directors do in fact have children in the schools now. Additionally, all of us have employees who have children in the schools right now as well. Nicole Flores says, I am an executive director with FHF and have a child receiving special education and related services in the public school system, as do other employees. Ms. Corley says, I didn't say the FHF centers were not family members and do not serve the community. I am saying it should not be just agency, but families whose children are directly impacted in the school system with problems being serviced, such as medically fragile children like mine that actually enter the building and cannot wear a mask. And all of the other comments or questions were already addressed. So that's all. You do have one committee member with her hand raised. I think it's Bambi.
Okay. Bambi.
Hi, Dr. Fletcher, I'm not sure if you shared this or not, but what department within LDOE do you work under? So we kind of can understand the way
I'm in the Equity, Inclusion, and Opportunities office.
Which is isn't that new from the new superintendent? And I think we talked a little bit about that at our last meeting. Mm-hmm. Can you give like a little blurb for somebody who wasn't here the last time?
Yeah, I think we've reorganized a little bit, and we're still, I think, in the process of reorganizing. So I think that there is this new office that's been created, and we're now under that. I guess I was formerly on the special education policy team, and so that team is now we're on the diverse learners division of the Equity, Inclusion, and Opportunities office.
So who's over that? Like, who's the director or the top of that chain of the group that you're in?
Dr. Kelly Peterson. I think you met her last time.
Yes. Right. So she was at our last meeting, and maybe the last two meetings, I think. So she had talked to us about just the realignment and things that they were going to be doing and with the Department of Education moving forward. And some of it was going to be things that could happen quickly and some that were going to take more time. And so I think that that's one of the reasons why they have the focus group and looking throughout the state to try and help recognize where there are opportunities for improvement. And I think working toward that across the state. So we appreciate that and glad to see you on our committee.
Thanks. I'm really happy to be here.
Okay, anything else with Department of Education? Our next items that we had on the agenda were about our goals and objectives for our 5-year plan, and then the council's legislative agenda, which is the cameras in the special education classroom upon request. And then ideas and activities for the full council to consider. Sorry. So, you'll have to help me. Can we, I know some of this would be votes, or how do we move through this section?
I can provide updates on that
Okay.
if you would like.
Yes, that would be great.
So at this committee's last meeting in October, we discussed, I asked the committee to begin thinking of ideas and activities for the full council to consider including in its FFY 2022 action plan, which begins October 1, 2021. I'm not sure if anybody did that, but this is, like I said, the FFY 2022 action plan is going to run October 1, 2021 through September 30th, 2022. You can use the state 5-year plan for 2022 to 2026, which was adopted at the October council meeting. You can look at that to see the plan to help you come up with ideas. But I would just, again, ask you guys to do that so that when there is an education employment committee that meets with a quorum and is able to vote, hopefully you all can come to that meeting with ideas to vote on, to bring to the full council. And those hyperlinks are in our agenda to the state 5-year plan.
Okay.
You guys talked a lot at the last meeting in October also about cameras in the classroom upon request. There was a lot of committee discussion. So I just linked that information here for you. Miss Mary had encouraged these discussions to come back at the next Education Employment Committee meeting as ideas for the FFY 2022 action plan. So I'll give you just the basics, but this is more under SDCI because it's the legislative agenda. But the council has its 2021 legislative agenda. It does include cameras in special education classrooms upon request. I know that LaCan is working on the legislative agenda right now, reaching out to legislators, scheduling legislative visits. I know that there's roundtable information coming soon. I think to create an activity for cameras in the classroom before that has become a law is probably putting the cart before the horse. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. And like I said, I just wanted to update you guys on where cameras in the classroom was, because I know it was a big piece of the discussion at the last meeting. I don't know if Miss Mary, that was what you were looking for. Oh, you're back. Okay. Miss Mary?
Mary, while
Yeah.
we're waiting on Mary, in regards to, you were talking about the 5-year plan, did I understand you correctly to say that we're going to decide on what those activities are?
So, as I understand it, the committees are tasked with bringing forward proposed ideas and activities to put on the action plan for FFY 2022. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and what is the time frame for that?
So I don't have it in front of me, but I think generally we would have mentioned it last meeting. We would have had ideas for this meeting and brought them forward either at the full council at this meeting or the full council at the next meeting. So it begins October 1, 2021. So it would be, we would want it lined up prior to that.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Good morning. This is Courtney Rowland. I'm the interim executive director of the council. Just to give you an update on the timeline for planning committee and with developing the next action plan. We have been asking for our standing committees to present ideas during their quarterly council meetings this week. And then those ideas are supposed to go before the full council on Thursday, the 21st. And those ideas that are developed or received by that full council will then go to the planning ad hoc committee, which will be formed and meet between February and March for them to develop a draft 2022 action plan. Then what that committee develops will then be presented during the April quarterly council meeting for the council to adopt that. And then if the council adopts those recommendations or makes changes, then council staff will then do solicitation of proposals for any contractual activities that the council has decided on. So that's why it's imperative that this month committees and the council come up with actual activities so that the planning committee can come up with a draft plan before the April council meeting, if that answers any other questions.
Thank you so much, Courtney. I was hoping you'd chime in.
So can we we're just having an open discussion now. So can someone share those items from that? I pulled it up on my screen, but there's the goal and then the objective, goal 3 and objective 3.1 and 3.2.
Yes,
and
I can do
have
that.
people kind of chime in with some ideas or ask questions about those things.
Yes. Can you all see this? I can't see what you guys see, so I need somebody to tell me if y'all can see this.
I can see it.
Yes, ma'am. Can you possibly enlarge it just a little?
Yes.
Thank you.
Does it look good? So this is the FFY 2022 to 2026 5-year plan. And I've highlighted what pertains to this committee. Like Bambi said, it's goal 3, education and employment.
Chris, just had a quick comment to do these same things as being part of the DD network, the goals and objectives. I like these because they're especially for a 5-year plan, they're broad enough to address a number of different areas that the council might want to get into the future. I've seen different agencies construct their objectives very narrowly and then find out 2 years later some kind of issue pops up. And because of the way that they've tailored their objectives so narrowly, they really can't address the issue because it's outside of their goals and objectives. So these are I think, they're relative to our goal and they're broad enough for us to really get creative if we needed to in terms of what we address over the next 5 years. I think they're good.
So this is Bambi. On objective 3.2, just to comment as I'm reading all of, these items that's kind of listed in 3.2, about, transitioning from, secondary education from high school, in access to inclusive employment opportunities, high quality support providers, increase competitive and integrated opportunities, and educating the employers on how to support people with developmental disabilities. All of these are great. One of the, I guess the elephant in the room is that all of this requires funding. It requires funding to train people. It requires funding for the support that people need. And so again, we've been talking about this for decades, but we leave millions and millions of dollars on the table because we do not have the matching fund for LRS. So I feel we can come up with goals on how to address all these things, but if we don't advocate to have the money to be able to do it, I think we'll continue to have problems in really making the progress we would like to see. So I don't know if anyone else has any comments on that. I'd like to hear what their thoughts are on it.
So this is Sue Killam. I'm sitting in for Dr. Phil Wilson. My background is really mostly the employment piece and the transition as kids exit school. So 3.2 is really a focus area of mine and of the transition employment and careers division at the Human Development Center. And I agree with you, Debbie, that's a big statement right there, and it has a lot of things in it, and it does require funding. And I think when we aren't able to convince sometimes the legislators to find the money to match so we can pull down all the federal dollars, we have a few strategies where we try to advocate and educate those legislators within the state, and sometimes we get some money back. But I think the other part of that, we'll still continue that fight. It's an important fight for sure. But the other thing is that I've run into recently, and I've run into with other schools and other community rehab programs, is that even with, so like the school, when schools exit kids at 18 and they can keep them to 22 and they exit them now with a diploma, that kid can't be re-enrolled into school typically to get, some of the MFP monies. Like we're kind of turning down opportunities to gather money that exists there. And so I think, I don't know how to shape this into I'm just raising it for the education of some of the committee members, is that, a lot of parents think their kids should exit at 18 with everybody else. And while I understand why that would be, if it cuts off the nose to spite the face in terms of stopping the funding that kid could have if they remained in school and still was able to walk and do some part of that ceremony, they're the critical things that parents and students want to do. But what they don't always understand is they're limiting their access to the continued funds that they could have until they're 22, and to do things that are, community-based instruction and that provide the funding to get that kid into a career and onto a pathway. And thankfully we have under Melissa's leadership, we have more of a focus on careers and getting kids on career pathways. And in my experience, they've been tremendous at being able to try to encourage internships and apprenticeships and to get kids into those services. So I'm just putting that out there. I don't have I'm only attending as a as someone's replacement. But I do think there needs to be some more teeth in these objectives to be able to increase the access to funding and for all of those. And one of the things that we're trying to do with LRS under the customized employment training that we'll be providing for and with them is, although that's been expensive in some other arenas, we've been asked to look at a low-cost methodology, and we're looking at being able to have the community rehab programs be able to pay for the training through the money they will receive in milestone payments for some of the service provision and customized employment. So essentially it almost becomes free. You know, there'd be a percentage of that because we have to work with them directly to mentor them. So I think there are ways to do this, but I think when it sets as a really cumbersome objective like this, we sort of lose sight of how to help access the funding and how to set up more activities under that objective that will increase funding and supports.
Thank you, Sue. And if I could just add to that and just to kind of just give some information for everyone. First of all, Bambi, thank you so much. I mean, we definitely need the advocacy for continued funding, state general funds for LRS, because for those of you who are familiar with how we are funded, we rely on those state general funds in order to pull down our grant award from the feds. And typically last year we sent back 50% of our grant that was available to Louisiana because we could not provide those matching funds. But one thing that I do want to confess is that we do have difficulty spending the pre-employment transition services money. The money is available, like we have to spend 15% of our federal funds on that. And there are very specific activities that we can't spend any admin costs or any, it definitely costs us time and effort, but some of those costs can't even be allocated to that 15%. So the struggle that we're having right now with LRS, or one of our struggles, is that we're having to spend an inordinate amount of time engaging these school districts and engaging these students to spend 15% of our funds, which is very, I mean, this is very important, but we also have to think about the general population as well. Those individuals who are not students with disabilities. So I guess my point is, and I don't know exactly what the activities could be, I'll have to think about that a little bit. But any assistance that we can get in engaging the school districts and engaging the students, because we have many battles when it comes to pre-ETs. First, we have to get the schools on board, but then there are certain documents that we are just required to have signed. And if that student's under the age of 18, they have to be signed by the parents. These are all hurdles that we are struggling with to get those students ready to participate in services. So just to kind of give some perspective there, just to let you all know, we definitely need the continued state general fund money. That's definitely a need of ours. But just to let you know, in all transparency, we do have a lot of funds available in pre-employment transition services that we have got to find a way. I've been pushing my staff, pushing my pre-ETS program coordinators to find mechanisms and ways to spend that money in a way that benefits the students, so that we don't have to send any of that money back to the feds. So just to kind of give some perspective on exactly what's happening or transpiring here at LRS.
Melissa, I think that comes to a point of like, we need, first off, probably all of us, even though I've been in hundreds of employment meetings over the past 5 years, just a better understanding of what is covered under pre-ETs. And then you're saying like outreach. So it seems like, to me, I'm gathering from that is that, and you're saying like your administrative costs to be able to do that outreach, to be able to spend that pre-ETS money, which is to the school districts or to those students, like having the capacity to be able to do it to the point that you need to be able to be effective. So that does go back to the point of if you had more money, you could have more staff, right? But the other issue is like, it seems like to me is that we need to have a partnership with the Department of Education to help out with that. So that could be a goal. and another issue is to the point of what Sue said about exiting at age 18. There's some issues with the Department of Education rules and how they give points to schools as far as their ranking, like are the students graduating and what time frame with their cohort. So there is a disincentive for them to stay and perhaps participate in some type of employment in those maybe 5th or 6th years of their high school education. And so that could be something that could be perhaps worked on, but that would take a change from the Department of Education so that then school districts aren't disincentivized, it's not disincentivized for them to get students out. If all of that makes sense, what I just said, I hope so.
Yeah, a couple questions. Melissa, just clarify, I don't know if I remember this correctly from some meetings a while back, but with respect to the transition age youth and the 15%, the department is not, the struggle there is getting the schools to buy into this. It's not that is the problem that that Voc Rehab is having is basically you're not spending that money enough, right? It's not that you don't have a lack of it, it's that you're having a hard time spending the 15% that you do have because schools are uninterested. It's not that you don't have enough money, is that right?
Correct. But then once we have
yeah, right, you're not going to have enough money for everybody else, right? Yeah. So let me ask this also, in order to be qualified to take advantage of the 15% that's mandated to be spent as a result of WIOA, what is the definition of transition age youth? Is there an age component there? And does it start at 16?
Yes.
With the transition, right?
It's 16 to 21 or until the 22nd birthday. So if they're in the school system and if they're in high school, they're going to be eligible. It gets trickier once they exit the school system. Then they have to be under the age of 22 and they have to be considered a student. So they would have to be in some type of degree seeking program at a university or credential seeking.
Right. So years ago, transition used to be mandated by the federal government to start at age 14, right?
And I think different states can elect different ages, but transition in Louisiana is at 16. And the Department of Education might be able to explain that a little bit more.
Right. I think that's all correct. So, one of the big things that I think there's a lot of studies on, I mean, if you really wanted to look at a single policy that could help both education and employment outcomes for people with developmental disabilities might include, because the state has, I believe, the ability to do this. I think if they were to do this, then you could start spending that 15% on a new group of individuals or earlier. And so maybe somebody on here knows if this is a legislative change that needs to take place in the state, or if this is like a policy regulation or something. But you could move the transition age back to 14. The idea that we start transition at 16 years old doesn't make, at least to me, I haven't heard good arguments as to why not having it at 14 wouldn't be better. I mean, 16, some people I graduated high school at 17. Some people graduate at 18. You have 24 months. Now, granted, you might have those extra years, but if people desire to, kind of maintain with their peers, starting transition, I would think at 14 might not be a bad idea to do. And it would open up the group of individuals that you could spend that 15% on that you're having a hard time spending it on. Does anybody know like a good argument why that is not what takes place, or how many states have elected to do that?
And just to also to piggyback on that also, Chris, the only other thing that I have to really look at is when we do get all of the school districts engaged, the only, not issue, but thing that we would have to figure out is we wouldn't have the funding to provide pre-eds from 14 to 22 for a student. So trying to figure out when to engage that student into the process. Like definitely our counselors should be involved sooner, but as far as cost services with our vendors, when does that start? Just to kind of throw that out there, that would be the next struggle. But as far as your question, I don't know off the top of my head how many states are engaging students prior to the age of 16, but I know it does happen.
Does anybody on here have a good history of why it might be a bad idea to start transition at 14?
I don't know.
Can I, well, let me tell you what I've heard. I mean, best practice in this is definitely to start at 14, but that's, mostly from the ivory towers of some of the people who do the research and provide the evidence-based best practice. So, all the literature will support kids need to start earlier. But typically the school is doing the services between 14 and 16 and sometimes longer. And as Melissa just said, that the VR system typically doesn't engage until a little later on because it's just an IEP at that point. And LRS is willing to say at that point that they will gladly take that referral and get them to meet eligibility at the point at which they're exiting the school. So now with pre-ETs, we have an opportunity to start things earlier, and most states are starting at 16, and some are even going as high as 18 for the legality of being out in the community and having kids, being sort of unescorted or traveling buses and doing the things that adults do in the community. So I think that one of the real issues is definitely we should start transition services early, but the school bears a big responsibility in that. And definitely it would be good to have somewhere more of a focus on actually doing a job. And one of the things that we're being afforded in pre-ETs, aside from all the other great instruction and support, is these opportunities to engage in WIBLs or work-based learning experiences, which can be paid or unpaid. Of course, we all hope that they're paid. And the employer, LRS, will reimburse the employer, and in some cases will also reimburse the agency, the CRP, for providing the supports. And now people will say, well, we didn't know this. But a lot of us did know this. And so we try to come to these kind of forums and get this information, but we need to get the word out. And then the other thing is a policy issue. There's a problem with interpretation of some of the acts, especially April Dunn Act and some of the other diploma acts in Louisiana. Who can get these services, and what does it mean for the school? Like Bambi said, they don't want to get a D- because they're doing the right thing, exiting kids early or keeping them longer. I mean, there's all kinds of implications that need to be addressed in policy so that we can make the transition seamless between the school services and then on to VR services and to the community rehab program. It's all doable, and it's being done in other states quite well. And it's being done here well, but in a fragmented way and with pockets of excellence within certain districts and that VR serves and the school serves.
Right. Let me ask this question, because this, I don't know this very deeply, but I know I have articles and such. One of the criticisms behind what I think is a really excellent idea and a good use of those 18 to 21 or 22 years, as Bambi said, getting out there, getting experiences, having internships and things like that. But I guess the criticism behind that, and I think it's on the federal level, if I recall right, and I don't know the extent in which it's actually a problem, is the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the individual has to actually be in the brick and mortar building for a number of hours per week in order to be able to tap into the education dollars. And I've heard that prohibits that individual from being able to go out into the community and get more legitimate job experience. I mean, I know that I've seen my brother's rooms back when I was in high school. They try and mimic a community, what might look like a pizza place or an ice cream shop or whatever. But we all know, especially for people with developmental disabilities who, kind of learn on experience and consistency, that you can take somebody, they can do a great job in this manufactured atmosphere, and then you take them to the actual place in the community and it throws them through a loop, and all the skills they learned aren't being transferred. So is that a legitimate issue? And if it is, that's a federal thing, right?
It is a definite legitimate issue, but I think it's an interpretation of the policy. A lot of schools are saying they can't have, it has to do with getting MFP monies. They want to get that $10,000 to $15,000 per student to be able to do instruction. And if they do grab that, then they have to have so many hours of instruction that they're providing. So there's some pool of students within Louisiana if they're on alternate assessment, certain kids can go to those kind of programs, but there needs to be a better policy interpretation or a better way of deciding who's who. I mean, the Human Development Center dealing with Jefferson Parish schools for the services we provide and trying to get a wider swath of people. And so they're talking with their attorneys, and it's all the legality of it now. So it's been okay to do. Now somebody's raising a red flag, and that's a real issue. It would be good if we had this resolved all through all the districts across the state. I think it's a policy issue, Chris.
I don't think that that's accurate, though, what Chris said about you have to be in the brick and mortar for a certain amount of time. You have to have, I think what Sue said was that you have to have instruction. So it could be that the instruction is happening on an off-site work environment, but someone from the school system has to be providing some support for part of that time. I think that's a more accurate description. You don't actually have to go to the, the high school campus and get instruction for a certain amount of time.
Well, and you're right, Bambi, but I tell you that very recently, we, for a few people who are 18 and 19 and want to come into like our paycheck program, for example, but that would mean anybody who wants to do post-secondary. So I'm not trying to bang, my own drum here, but the schools are trying to figure out who can come, who can actually do that. So it's like they're asking who is allowed to go and take classes at a community college and receive instruction in the community and not have to come back to the school, but meet the requirements of their diploma. And now the school is saying, well, not everybody. And we're going to tell you who it is. I think it's a very limited group. And that's scary right there. That's very scary that they're saying that when they meet with the Department of Ed, when they meet with the State Department of Ed, the lawyers there are constricting who can come. And from what I know, and I'm certainly not expert on education policy or law, more employment, but it should not be that way. That things are supposed to be opening up, not closing up. And so
Right.
I agree with your points, but I do think there needs to be a more scrutiny around the new diploma pathways and the new career pathways within that and what that means for whichever agency. Because I do think everybody's trying to do the right thing, but they're all afraid of compliance and the issues as state agencies they need to be aware of. But it's a real point of concern, I think.
Hello.
Hey, Mary, we can hear you.
Oh my gosh, I'm back in civilization. It's like, I could hear y'all, but you couldn't hear me. Sorry. Y'all, thank you for all the discussion, and it just goes to show how much the two interactions between Department of Education and LRS are so important for our kids as they get ready to transition out of school. And I definitely think that we need to consider something on our action plan around this. We can't make recommendations today and vote on stuff, but I do think that certainly is something that we can bring up to the full council this week. And so I'm hoping that that we'll be able to do that and put this on our action plan for our committee.
Mary, can I make one last comment on this? And I saw that several people make comments in the chat, which I know this is a true point that I've heard for many years across the state. And this goes back to the original point that I talked about with funding, and I think that has to do with staffing with the LRS, is that LRS counselors attending the IEP meetings, that doesn't happen from what I'm hearing. I have always had the experience, and I know it's just because it's me. It is not something that's a systemic change, but having that LRS per staff person attend my son's IEP meeting was very beneficial. And so I think with more funding, if we had more LRS staff attending these meetings, it would make it easier for all the stuff that we're talking about, because we can talk about all these things. We can give the families the information on what they should advocate for. But there comes a point where, especially at this point in the lives of these young people with disabilities, the parents are wore out. And so it takes so much effort to be able to get these people at our meetings, at the IEP meetings, you know, it's just not going to happen. And then we don't have the advocacy and things don't change. So I think probably funding and having more LRS counselors to be able to attend those meetings would be, could be beneficial potentially.
Yes, we definitely need more counselors. I mean, our counselors are assigned to so many schools that it's really hard to meet. You know, there's always scheduling conflicts, but you know, we do push our staff to try their best to attend as many IEPs as they possibly can.
Okay, and I think there's a silver lining to all the COVID and virtual world. It does make it easier to have meetings and get, you know, where they don't have to travel and take that travel time. If they could be on an IEP by virtual means, then that is helpful as well. So.
Hi, Miss Mary, you have a hand raised and you have several comments in the chat.
All right, let's go with the hand raised.
Hi, Mary. Thank you. It's Liz Gary. I just wanted to reiterate what I had typed in the chat. As a parent of an 18-year-old, I can tell you that the only reason my son got LRS sitting around the table when he was 14 is because I was adamant that somebody had to be there. And in that meeting, when we were discussing, and I actually, at 14 actually is when I got it, because I wanted them to do kind of an overview assessment to start planning and looking at what he enjoyed doing and what could possibly be his employment track, if that's what he decided, versus post-secondary. And so that's what happened when he was 14. He was entering the 8th grade in the high school. They were very resistant, and I pursued and pushed it. I have since then, now he is at in high school, I have pushed for him to be able to have pre-ets, and they tried this year because he's a junior to say, no, let's wait till senior year. And I was very adamant that it needed to be done this year, considering COVID and all the issues going on. And not only the fact that he's on a rotating schedule where they don't meet every day. So the schedule was very bizarre. The fact that he may not be able to complete the entire pre-ets program in a year. And so that's why I pushed for 2 years. But Melissa, with that being said, there is very much of a resistance, and there's very much of lack of information for parents to know what can happen and how to do it. And I find that that's where we need to get the education out to, is the parents, so that they understand what is can be and what should be done, because it's not coming from, and I will speak at least for St. Tammany Parish, that it's not coming from that school system, and we are getting mostly resistance from that when we try to pursue it. I mean, when you talk about pre-ets, people look like deer in a headlight, like they have no idea what that is. Not only parents, but even some of the special educators I've spoken to. So it's clear that it's not being, it's not enough out there. And if it has to be my mission to start educating it, I've done it a couple times on social media, making sure people are aware of it and pursuing, because I think it's very, very important. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.
Comment.
Ms. Rosalind Heimel and Ms. Karonda Corley also have their hands raised.
Okay, Rosalind.
Hi, this is what I want to know, and somebody, I'm not sure who said it about with ISPs and that, and all. What can I'm going to mention it. What could only one person can do alone with their own ISP, and that. And for me as an adult, and that could that person make a difference in their life, even if they are a self-advocacy person? Can somebody fill me in on that one? I don't know, could that as an adult, even as a parent or an advocacy person or whatever person could be, or even a student?
I think, are you talking about the IEPs?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's for kids that are in school. So either up to the age of 22. So after that, then that wouldn't apply. The IEP would not apply to them. But yes,
Well,
help to have somebody there.
well, actually for me, in Magnolia Community Services, and we have ISPs, that's like an annual ISP for a year, you know, and let them know what that client, or it could be a client, could be a student, and could that still come underneath the other schools as well? That's what I want to know.
I think it's
Or does it have an age bracket to it?
I know the IEPs is only in school, and I'm not sure about an ISP. So I don't know if Marilee or somebody has, but it might be something that we
Does anybody
to help to answer your question outside of the meeting, because I don't know if it has.
I'm not familiar with the ISPs, but I can tell you that if you are a client at LRS, we are required to do at least an annual review of your case record. But I know you mentioned something, Rosalind, about self-advocacy, and just to kind of highlight there, that instruction in self-advocacy is one of the 5 required pre-ETS activities. So just to let everyone know that that is part of pre-employment transition services, that these students receive instruction in that area. Up to the age of 18, you do have to have parental consent to engage in pre-employment transition services. But just to let you know that we definitely promote that within LRS.
Because I am with the LRS, and I have, well, I can't even think of her name offhand, but she works for the LRS, and but she's on my tongue. It's not rolling off.
It's okay. Thank you, Rosalind. If you have any specific questions, you can get with me or the staff, and we'll see if we can get the answers to the question that you have.
Right, because I don't have my phone at the moment in that, and because I'm trying to get my phone back because I broke my phone. So
Okay.
Who can I get a number from so I can keep up with y'all?
I will give you my number.
I would appreciate that.
Okay. It's 318
318
664
664
0843.
Wait a minute. 664. Where was the other one?
Yeah, 0843.
0843.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks. How you spell your name though?
Mary. Mary.
Oh, okay, I see your last name too, so.
Yeah, Tarver, Tarver.
It's a V, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I'm just making sure.
That's okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay. Were there any other questions or comments?
Miss Karonda Corley has her hand raised and you have several comments.
Okay, Ms. Karonda.
Thank you so much, Miss Chair Lady, and the rest of the committee. It was stated during one of our last in-person special education advisory panel meetings that this was a problem. And they even went to have the executive there, and he spoke about how he's having many problems with trying to get into a lot of these school systems. So if we're going to be realistic about LRS, if LRS is having problems with actually getting into the school system, then that means that there's going to be a problem with actually meeting the actual quota that they want to set and actually providing the services that they are legally required to do. Now, we have to look at how can we go about making sure that families know about it and that families start doing just like Ms. Gary stated, which is advocating for their child receiving it at 14. When we do know that a lot of school systems are giving parents pushback, like Ms. Gary stated, and trying to force them to do it at 17 and 18. How do we stop that? Families Helping Families only have a certain amount of staff. LRS also have only a certain amount of staff. Have we ever considered making this a class action situation and go legally after it with our disabilities right advocacy? It's an option. That's an option we're not discussing. That's an option that we haven't even considering, because we have too many people with disabilities that has been documented by LSU that are not being able to get employment opportunities due to the school system's failure as well as LRS. And I'm not putting the blame on LRS because it's not their fault that they're meeting such resistance from the school systems. I'm saying that as a DD council, our legal obligation is to do systemic change, and we're not taking consideration of how we can go about making this systemic change. It should not be that Ms. Gary had to fight Tammany school system as much as she did to get her son LRS resources. And that is a problematic because EBR school system does the same. EBR school system even utilize LRS. Parents have to push for that as well. So if St. Tammany is having to do this same fight as EBR school system is doing, I think we could probably take a look and see just how many other schools, but we don't have to. Ms. Sue Killiam stated that is very much problematic. It's existing around the state. So can we please consider doing some real action like a class action lawsuit? We do have the Disabilities Right Advocacy Center Executive Director, Mr. Rodriguez, sitting here at the table. Let's utilize him resources and let's keep figuring out how we can go about it, because for one way or another, one thing they do recognize and they pay attention to is lawsuits. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else with any with a hand raised?
No more hands raised, Mary, but you do have several comments.
Okay, can you read through
And
them?
I can read those.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Hyacinth McKee says, Bambi, that is an excellent comment. This issue regarding disincentive should be addressed in the focus group. Ms. Christy Curtis says, outreach and education to parents on what LRS is and what they do is desperately needed to engage those students. When parents are just asked to sign a paper without the service being explained, there is hesitation. Ms. Kathleen Canino says, I have also heard it's hard to get LRS to attend the IEPs. Dr. Hyacinth McKee says a recommendation would be that the LDOE focus group plan could address all of the concerns discussed on this matter. And Mr. Harlan Kauser says, I think that it is really important for us to recognize the difference between equal and equitable education supports and opportunities for people with disabilities. Equal is good, but sometimes equitable is much more beneficial to the individual. And Dr. Charlie Michelle states, when discussing LRS having difficulty getting into IEP meetings, please remember that the schools can only invite any agencies to transition meetings when the parents provide written consent. So while there are issues with LRS attending, we must consider all aspects of the situation. Inadequate staffing at LRS, some schools showing resistance, and parents refusing to grant permission. Legal recourse should only be pursued once all of the problems have been discussed. I'm sorry, hold on a second.
What difference he can play with this? How he play with basketball game? How he play basketball?
I'm sorry, I lost it. Legal recourse should only pursue once all aspects of the problem have been discussed and collaborative solutions pursued. And that's all the that's all the comments for now.
Thank you. All right, we have had a great discussion about this. I feel like we need to make sure that we're able to move forward with some actions for this, and then we can't vote. So Courtney or Marilee, what would we do? Like, anybody on the committee could bring up the a focus for the PREATS education.
So, okay, so I'm not sure. I'm fairly certain this committee will not be able to reschedule prior to the council meeting. Today's Tuesday, and the full day Wednesday is SDCI and Act 378, and then the council meeting's Thursday. I've truly never been in this situation before. I did a little bit of research while we were meeting, and I think it would be appropriate for committee members to bring suggestions just at the full council meeting when there is the next meeting at which you all will be present, where there's a quorum. And then that's kind of what Baby said at the beginning.
Okay.
I think that might make the meeting a bit longer because you're not, Miss Mary, you normally go up for education and employment and you say, we voted, and this is what we recommend, but that can't be done.
Okay.
That would be, I think, my only suggestion, unless Courtney has a better one. And I'm not sure if she's still on here. She's the planning person.
Okay.
So this is really her area.
Okay. We can touch base after the meeting too to see.
Mary, this is Bambi. Like, it seems to me, based on our discussion, and I know we can't make any formal recommendation, but based on our discussion, we don't have a solution. We've done a lot of work around employment and kind of, have some different things that's been done. But it seems like some things have been put into focus. It may be in order to address this issue of coming up with some, some activities, is that we get maybe a small group of people to kind of work through some suggestions. So like have like another meeting, because by Thursday, I don't think anybody's going to have like a solution of an activity. If that would be appropriate, that would be my suggestion.
So Bambi, so what you're saying is a small group, not the full education committee, meet
No,
after
it could be
the
the full education committee. I don't know why I was saying that. I just, I know that there's people who like have experience, parents and professionals that we could kind of come up and be concise and make some recommendations for some activities, but definitely it could be the full committee and the public to have input.
So and holding that after the council meeting, so it would push back the timeline a little bit. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If I may make a comment or a suggestion, is that maybe during Ms. Tarver's Education and Employment Committee report during the council meeting to ask the full council if the Education and Employment Committee can convene after the quarterly meeting to develop their recommendations to be sent directly to the Planning Ad Hoc Committee.
Yeah, I like that idea, because I know between now and Thursday, I won't be able to, I won't, that just leaves tomorrow, and I already have some obligations for tomorrow that won't be able to happen. So I think it will take another meeting of this group, and hopefully we can get the full quorum here. Our meeting today is just discussion. We can't vote or make any recommendations to the full committee to vote on because we did not have quorum. So I think we still have some good discussion, and I think we have some focus on some ideas of some actions that we can do. So I appreciate that, and I think that that's something that we can look at. And whenever I make my notes for the full council meeting, Courtney, maybe you and I can get together, or Marilee, to help me to communicate with the full council what our plan is.
Sounds good.
Okay, is there any other discussion that we need to have or comments before we adjourn? Okay.
Ms. Mary, Ms. Rhonda Corley does have a question. She's
Okay.
asking, is this meeting legally supposed to go forth without a quorum? We may need to have legal verification on this topic.
No, we talked about it. We were able to move forward with the meeting without the quorum. You just can't vote or make any recommendations to the full council. Okay. Then we will, I guess we don't have to, we were having an informal discussion, so I guess we don't need to have a formal recommendation to adjourn the meeting. So I will say it's 11 o'clock. I appreciate y'all's time. For the people who were able to get on the call, I look forward to our next meeting.
Thank you all. And
Thank y'all.
I think I'll just post these as meeting notes on the website because it's not a summary.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.